Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Gold and silver's slow recovery in a chaotic situation. Let's explore. I'm recording this video just after President Biden gave his speech where he recognizes the failure of his administration, at least to a degree, essentially recognizing failure without taking responsibility for the exit and how Afghanistan has collapsed so quickly. As they move troops out and trying to get civilians away, the threat of the Taliban taking over, and that is having an effect on gold and silver prices. Last night on this very channel, I had a live stream for the Sunday Night Market Watch where we took a look at the prices as they open up in Hong Kong and Asia. Well, China is a very influential country in the East. It's quite obvious, and I believe they're quite happy about what's going on over there in Afghanistan and our standing in the world, and it's sort of a stain as to how that had occurred. Of course, reasonable people can disagree as to how we handled Afghanistan for 20 years. Most of us would agree that we probably should not be there nation building per se. Nonetheless, God bless all of the troops who have served there and the brave Afghans who stood with us. There's a lot who didn't. A lot of them are scared in Afghanistan, but this having an effect on the markets. When we did this live stream last night, we saw the prices for both gold and silver subside a bit. And we're now kind of seeing an arbitrage, I believe, between the East and the West. And but nonetheless, the markets kind of came together and snapped to it. And we can see that they are kind of in line right now. And they are up. Gold and silver are having a bit of a slow recovery with back-to-back gains from last week to this week because of the news cycle, especially with Afghanistan. But there's other reasons too. But that's what the chaotic situation is today. That's what's dominating the news cycle. And as you know, geopolitics does have an effect on precious metals. This is an article from Market Watch. It talks a little bit about it, but other reasons as well. We're going to go through them all. Gold futures climbed Monday for a second straight session, marking their highest settlement in more than a week, as disappointing U.S. economic data provides support for the haven metal. Prices for gold moved higher after data from the New York State region. The Empire State Factory Index showed a drop of 18.3 in August from 43 in the prior month. The yellow metal saw support from a risk-off scenario thanks to its safe haven role. Carlo Alberto de Casa, market analyst for Kinesis, told Market Watch, the Afghanistan situation is pulling down stocks while investors are moving some liquidity to gold. In fact, somebody shared with me a video of in the previous days of Afghans swarming the banks to get their money out. And more than likely they weren't trying to get Bitcoin out. And boy, if they would have had gold or silver, probably would have proved much more valuable than having to make a bank run. In this situation, U.S. benchmark stock indexes were under pressure Monday following weaker than forecast Chinese economic data and the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. December gold rose $11.60, or nearly 0.7%, to settle at $1,789.80 an ounce after touching a high of $1,791.30. Prices for the most active contract logged the highest finish since August 5th, FactSet data show. The gains for the precious metal came despite reports that the Federal Reserve is moving towards a concrete plan to unwind some aspect of COVID-era easy money policies. And maybe too little too late, especially with inflation. We're going to see some numbers come out that on paper will show, I believe, that they will show that inflation is subsiding a bit on paper. But the reality is that since it's over year-over-year analysis, it'll give you a false sense of security and the following report will show that inflation is continuing. That's my prediction. We'll see if it comes true. Gold is surprisingly thriving a week after the small crash sent it tumbling back towards $1,680, said Craig Earlham, a senior market analyst at Oanda. Since then, the yellow metal has done well, a combination of an over-exaggerated initial move being unwound and a softer dollar, lower yields giving it new life. U.S. consumer sentiment on Friday was particularly good for gold as it sent U.S. yields and the dollar sharply lower, he said in a note. The worst sentiment reading is almost a decade turbocharged the move, which is why gold exploded back above the 1740-1760 resistance zone and now finds itself flirting with $1,800 an ounce once more. Tell you what, it is very, these numbers are touchy, and that's what it is. It always goes back to a safe haven, and that's what gold is. Let's pause for a moment and take a look at what gold is doing here. We can see that it is getting very close, flirting with that level. In fact, it's climbing a little bit more. Silver is outperforming gold, but only slightly. In fact, the gold to silver ratio now is just under 75. Silver is a little bit slow to move here to regain, but it is recovering slowly here. Earlham believes gold fortunes may not have drastically improved just yet unless the economic data is first in a series of shocking economic numbers for the U.S. Gold will struggle to break $1,800, and the fact that it marks the 50% retractment of the early June highs to August lows won't help matters. The takeover of Afghanistan stoked some buying in safe haven assets, sending Tuesday's prices up Monday, pulling down yields. The 10-year Treasury note, 1.276 to 1.256 from 1.297 on Friday. Bearish factors for gold keeping prices for precious metals in check included data from highlighted an economic slowdown brewing in China, one of the biggest buyers of commodities, including gold, amid the spread of the Delta variant of COVID-19. On top of that, Fed officials were seen moving towards an agreement on a timetable that could result in the central bank beginning to scale back its monthly purchases of $120 billion in Treasury and mortgage-backed securities in about 3 months, if the economic recovery continues, the Wall Street Journal reported on Monday. Well, we'll see. Moves to withdraw accommodation are seeing as potentially bearish for precious metals because it could push yields for treasuries, which compete with gold for haven demand higher. And I think that some of this stuff, we know that people, you've heard me talk about this in prior videos, people want good news. They crave it. And so that's why you see some of these numbers that could be interpreted as good news will send precious metals dipping. In fact, some of them have automatic triggers, as we've learned in a recent interview. And so, therefore, what does this mean? Well, I think some of these numbers, especially the next inflation numbers, we very well may see it subside a bit. And other data that could be revised one way or the other are going to have moves. But I believe that at least this week, we could very well see $1,800 gold again, which is unfortunate because that's going to push a tier of a coin I'm looking to buy from the U.S. Mint up, which kind of is a bummer, but nonetheless. So we're wrapping this article up here. Gold is being partially supported by lower growth rate projections. Chintan Karnani, director of research and Insignia Consultants, told MarketWatch, adding that he doesn't expect Fed tapering to be as swift as markets have factored in. I agree with that, and I think that's going to keep gold up. Tuesday's U.S. July retail sales numbers would have to come in very high to allay fears that consumers are affected by inflation, said Karnani. U.S. July retail sales numbers on the lower side of expectation will result in gold price breaking past $1,836 for $1,878. That's $1,878. So it would be very interesting to see. I believe that very well could happen. I think it's likelier to happen than to have gold move the other way. I think maybe we might see it subside or languish in this area for a while, just below $1,800. But, I think a lot is going to be happening. We're going to hear more of the analysis of Biden's speech and what happens in the coming days. We're hearing horror stories of people literally grasping on to landing gear as planes take off out of Afghanistan out of that sheer desperation, hanging on for dear life only to fall to their deaths, which is still far less suffering than they would be under torture under the Taliban for some people who had any connection at all with the U.S. and what are going on there. But yes, indeed, some very interesting indeed news happening today. Chaotic day geopolitically, as we know, and I think that's having an effect on precious metal prices today. And I believe it could still have an effect even tomorrow and the coming weeks. We'll see how it plays out. Nonetheless, there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.